Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you. I'm Jackie, the curator at the Sheldon Jackson Museum, and we're here with Golga Oscar. We have an audience here in person and all of you online, so thank you so much for joining us. This is Golga's second to last presentation, but he'll also be teaching a Yupik pouch making class before he leaves Sitka. And additionally, we'll be teaching, we're working out the details, but a mukluk making workshop as well, a real intensive one in early November and at the very end of October. So we're very pleased to bring him here to you. He is here as part of the Alaska Native Artist Residency Program, a program made possible with generous support from the National Endowment for the Arts, as well as the Friends of Sheldon Jackson Museum and private donors. If I could ask you now, if you're on Zoom, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself if you haven't already done so. And we will have time at the end for questions. Before we begin, I would like to just do a land acknowledgement and make two other comments. If you're an artist or researcher, culture bearer, and you're interested, the Sheldon Jackson Museum, the Friends of Sheldon Jackson Museum, and Sheldon Jackson Museum will be hosting a winter series. It's called Share Your Culture, Share Your Research, and we would love to see applications come in from you. If you'd like to give a public presentation, present on a paper, perhaps share your findings at your work or with the tribe if you work for a tribe. You can also do a cooking demonstration, storytelling, singing, dancing. There's a whole host of different opportunities for you. Call the museum, reach out if you're interested. Additionally, we will be making the call for the Alaska Native Artist Residency Program for our next round of applicants. We get more and more applicants every single year, and we'd love to have new artists like Golga come to the Sheldon Jackson Museum. So please reach out to the museum if you're interested in that call. It should start probably in November. And I'd love to talk to you more about the opportunity. All that aside, we can begin now with the land acknowledgement for the Friends of Sheldon Jackson Museum, and I'll share a bit with Golga and then have him start his presentation. So welcome. We would like to acknowledge and express our appreciation to the Indigenous people of Tlingit who have occupied this land for longer than any of us can imagine. And after 250 years of colonization in Alaska, are graciously allowing us to share this amazing land with them. Thank you. Golga Oscar is a Yupik artist from Southwest Alaska. He's self-taught and pursues modern textiles that reflect his cultural identity. He seeks to revitalize his ancestral work with a mix of contemporary materials and design. And he has been exploring different mediums, ranging from leather skin sewing to grass weaving and walrus ivory and wood carving. A strong cultural identity is evident in his work, and through his knowledge of traditional art forms and sewing skills, he creates cultural attire that becomes a vital visual element in his photographic imagery. Some of Oscar's work is permanently in collections in a few museums, including the Anchorage Museum, Burke Museum, and International Folk Art Museum. Hopefully the Sheldon Jackson Museum sooner than later as well. We'll see what happens. So thank you so much. Give you Golga now.
Great. Goyana Jackie. Question kasadun Golga. Angayakaka anak and David Daruk Chalishu Tutka Kanga up Sangok Iligvakshu Anama Angayakak Chalishu Atamangayakak Arnakushu Togami Kiznak Marankogun Chalish Atamun. Anakakulmingu kata kashikaluyarminguluni tagam anama atapara akkachormingu kuihlugmitchal kuihlukogumi litnervatni a picnic child some sort of child boarding school. Hello, my name is Golga. My name is Kukal. My mother's name is Molly and my father's name is David. My mother's from the Gulmute inside the Bluffs region, which consists of Atmashok, Kasigalok, and Nunapichok. My father's from the Kaluya Mute Nation, Nelson Island, and it consists of 6 villages: Tununuk, Tuksuk Bay, Newtok, Nightmute, Mukhtarvik, and Chefornik. Both of the villages are very influent in Yuchtun. I was surrounded by my maternal side of grandparents, both Henry and Marie Charles. And while growing up in my mother's community, they taught me a lot of Yupik values and Yupik language. English is my second language. I didn't get a chance to learn English language until I hit 3rd grade, because the YLA Yupik language program was very consistent back in the day versus after 2010. So about this presentation, I'm going to be speaking about understanding different techniques of Yupik art. In Yupik, it would be daring lugi Yupik dat biling or right. Moving forward. So matum Yupik dat right biling or it, meaning looking at these Yupik art. These archives were gathered from the Anchorage Museum, and along with State Museum over at Juneau. And I've been I've been conducting research for the past 5 years about my culture identity. And through my research, I've been utilizing trails to corporate books, and these books consist of spiritual significance about these spiritual significance about these products, and how my people would utilize variety of the natural materials throughout Southwest Alaska. So these images consist of Yupik bags that are made out of a variety of materials, and whatever was accessible back in the day was what they used. They were very innovative within natural resources, and these natural resources consisted of bird feet, bird skin, mink, otter, calf skin, along with sea mammal esophagus or intestines. So majority of these bags were used with 2 different materials, either bird and esophagus, either seal or with walrus esophagus, and some were even calf skin, reindeer or caribou skin. And then each unique piece would be at least be creative in a way. Every time when they used esophagus, they would try and incorporate a geometric design. Geometric designs were a source of family symbology, and each person was recognizable where he came from or where they came from. It was also through parka designs. So each family back in the day had at least a geometric design that symbolized their family lineage. And every time when they traveled out in different regions, different villages, they would recognize that person of where that person came from, to a point where that if that person recognized, then there would be related through their designs. So speaking about these materials, like I mentioned, geometric design was one of the designs that was mainly used on Yupik art. And it really signified the of how far their family stretched. The image that you see on the top left corner is an image of a Siberian Yupik bag, and it's made out of young bearded seal, consisted of a walrus esophagus. So during ancestral time, they were very innovative within their materials. They also wanted to follow the Yupik color system, which was red, blue, black, and white. And these top three pigments, red, blue, and white, were mainly harvested throughout Nelson Island or any other regional in Yupik Nation. And these elements were mainly clay. Then there's stories behind them. For example, the way that the red was harvested was the story behind it was that when the raven's daughter was going through her monthly, the raven would bring her daughter out by the house and let her sit on the ground until the bleeding stopped. And that's how red ochre became to be. Blue was blue signified as water and happiness. And then white represented daytime, although black was harvested from the charcoal from the fire thing. So these three materials were mainly utilized during ancestral period on Yupik masks or certain parka areas. Some were even used during ceremonial dance called karetak. Karetak translates to Yupik Halloween in a Yupik way. And the way that they used to do it was that they would color the kid's face with white clay, and then they would put charcoal on their face as the spots. And then during that ceremony, it would go on for 5 days. And during that ceremony is when the kids, including the men, would go house to house holding bowls. And traditionally, before candies and all sorts of before the introduction of Western materials, they used to give people dried fish or frozen fish. And the way that they would know when when to start the ceremony was during the first day of the frozen water pond. But yeah, the second image on the bottom left corner is an image of a inugok wearing biluguk, meaning a Yupik doll wearing its insect-like biluguk, and that was the traditional form of the woman's style mukluks. It would those dots that you see on the front consisted of jivagok. Jivagok in English terminology would be fly-like insect. And it would consist of a certain Yupik number. Sometimes there'll be 3, sometimes there'll be 4, and 5 or 7. The image on the middle of the parka that you see is an image of fancy parka called alngalik. Alngalik had to do with tassels. And each region throughout Yupik Nation would have their own style of parka. So one of the things that I've learned from people from conducting from my own research, a parka that has many tassels, the parka would come from a village called Tepnuk. Tepnuk is near Chifornik. I think it's 80 to 90 miles west from Bethel. But yeah, and certain parkas would would have a specific name. So this is Alnuk parka. And other parkas, the parka that are in the museum, the ones that has a shoulder on the calfskin, the one that has calfskin on its shoulder would be a kulitak, meaning a story parka. And one of the parkas that I'm will produce after AFN is a parka called Kalik. Kalik is shield parka. But then to be specific about this parka, my people would mainly use wolverine as tassels. And behind the wolverine skin, there would be word ochre colored into it. So whatever tassel is incorporated onto a Yupik piece, Yupik attire, a brown tassel has to be colored in word ochre. And they would include yarns as just for the spirits to navigate. The image that you see on the far right corner is an image of sail flippers that I captured back in the Anchorage Museum. And majority of my people would incorporate red and black yarn or white to, excuse me, um, white to, I mean, the white would be used with bangayuk. If bangayuk translates to reindeer caribou beard that hangs off of their neck. These cultural significances was really spiritually connected into Yupik spirituality. Looking looking into more of Yupik collection, like I mentioned, majority of the colors were mainly utilized on variety of Yupik attire, even on Yupik hats. Um, Yupik hats were one of the main great way of recognizing where that person came from, specifically regional areas. I think the image on the top left corner comes from the Kalu Yarmut, and Kalu Yarmut translates to Nelson Island region. Nelson Island mainly incorporates blue color onto their Yupik attire. If it came from if a certain hat came from a Gulmate, my mom's region, it would only consist of red, black, and white. They didn't have any blue color accessible, but they would trade it with other regional areas. The image that you see on the left bottom corner is an image of the mittens that I'm currently producing, and it's a toddler size mittens. It consists of Yupi colors that signify from the Nelson Island region. And the black that you see is gluhkat. Gluhkat translates to fancy stitching. Fancy stitching was one of the stitches that was done on parka, fancy parka, or headdress. And then these fancy stitches were to signify of how munak, meaning skillful, the artist was. Akatamani back in the day, they would munak tasagaluting, meaning munat tasagaluting, meaning how much a person can be skillful, and they would try to beat other skillful artists. The image that you see on the bottom is an image of a hat that is made out of Arctic squirrel and trimmed with some sort of maybe mink or otter fur. And the white design in the middle is a caribou reindeer skin, excuse me. So yeah, majority of these pieces mainly reflected on Yupi colors. The image on the top right corner is an image of seal flippers. Seal flippers, majority of my people used to collect seals and like nothing would go to waste. So they would be innovative in many ways. And these seal flippers were made into a pouch. And it consisted of seal esophagus and other I think sinew was also incorporated. The bottom right corner image is pair of mukluks that I captured over at State Museum over in Juneau. They're one of the unique designs that I came across compared to any other mukluks that I've seen in the archive collection. The reason why I captured them was I kind of wanted to revitalize a design and try to be creative within my mukluk collections. Also, the design kind of reminded me of the design that came from my aunts. All of my four aunts have similar parka design over at my mom's side of family. Although when I tried asking my maternal side of the family about the parka design, they didn't really know. Although luckily, four of my aunts that produced their parka, the instructions came from one of their grandmothers, and her name was Minigagalga. Um, I think Minigagalga was my grandmother's aunt, and she was very innovative with parka trimmings and parka styles. So Yupik masks were part of our culture for thousands of years. And Yupik masks were one of the things that mainly reflected on I think the term that we use is agayuyarak, meaning the way of making our prayers. And majority of these masks had variety of faces that reflected on animal and human faces. And these masks would be colored in earth pigments, either red pigment, red, blue, black or white. The image that you see on the right image is an image of myself that I produced my first mask using driftwood. And the pigments that I got was the pigments that I bought from Lower 48, where they were more accessible. I think few community members to this day harvest earth pigments, but majority of them don't know where these earth pigments are. The bag that you guys see that I'm holding was a bag that I kind of wanted to create for my people to be aware of. That bag is a medicine bag, and it consists of calfskin, otter, spotted seal, and bearded seal. It's a bag that I produced during the first few months of pandemic, and that bag was to send out the message that we don't have to rely on Western medicine. There are natural medicine out there that we can obtain and use off of and heal that from us. Because growing up, I used to hear that traditional medicinal plants were one of the medicine that were more powerful and more natural. And the mukluks that I wore during that time are the mukluks that signify Sham'inga. Sham'inga is like, it translates to eye of the creator, eye of the awareness. So eye of the creator, eye of the awareness was also implemented onto the Yupik collection, Yupik art. It was a way for us to be watched by the creator, protecting us throughout the day. And I think the amount of eyes that I incorporated was up 3 each on both sides, which represented positive, negative, and the big trinity. So throughout my college over at IAIA, I started to challenge myself of how I can pursue more of an artistic way to represent, excuse me, represent contemporary versus traditional aspect of Yupik identity. Since we live in a modern society and more more of a Western materials are becoming more accessible, I kind of wanted to challenge viewers of what traditional and contemporary is. The image that you guys see on the left is an image of myself wearing 2 different headdresses. That image consisted of caribou, beaver, and bearded seal, while the contemporary headdress consisted of wolf, wolverine, cotton fabric, porcupine quills, and beads. So traditionally, back in the day, majority of these headdresses were made out of natural resources, and these natural resources consisted of caribou. The border would be made out of caribou hair, caribou skin, or bearded seal skin, and the brown fur would be mink or beaver, and the fur would be caribou or reindeer beard, bangayut. And that was before the introduction of wolf fur. So that traditional aspect would be for a men or woman style of headdress, or if it was a men's style, it would consist of feathers, bird feathers, and these bird feathers would be either swan or owl feathers, snowy owl feathers, or caribou. And a woman's headdress would consist of wolf, wolverine, or wolf and beaver. Traditionally, back in the day, they didn't used to use beads, but ever since the introduction of beads, that's when majority of my ancestors started to beautify their borders. And these beads would only consist of Yupi colors. The image that you guys see on the right side is a contemporary image of myself, titled Three Generations Back and Three Generations Forward. I wanted to challenge people that I there were three generations ahead of us that continued the art. And then this current generation, we're slowly revitalizing majority of our ancestral work to a point where my generation is giving an opportunity to teach the next generation. And we hope that generation continues forward to keep the tradition and culture alive. So those three pairs of mukluks that are hanging are the mukluks that I made during my time at IAIA. The middle pair are one of my first pair that I ever made, and it was more of a northern style, New Bath style. The left pair that consisted of spotted seal was one of the second pairs I made, and it was a fancy style, and it consisted of beaded materials along with wolverine, beaver, spotted seal, and bearded seal. And the pair that is on the right side is a pair of Inuit bath style, more of a contemporary style mukluks. And all of these three pairs, I kind of wanted to hang them in. The feathers are eagle feathers, and the pair that I'm wearing are the pair that I made back in 2019 with and yeah. So the pair that I'm wearing is made out of wolf legs, wolverine, and soles are made out of bearded seal, along with the ties. Traditionally, the ties were made out of young bearded seal. Before leather became accessible, before yarn became accessible, but those were the main materials that were mainly used on a pair of mukluks. And those pair of mukluks, I kind of wanted to go in a traditional form and also contemporary form. The designs that you see, the trimming designs, are more of a mixed media designs that I kind of got influenced by one of the movies called Resident Evil. I don't know if you guys seen that logo design, the Umbrella Corporation design. I kind of wanted to go for that along with the stairs design. And then moving forward, I started to incorporate more contemporary ideas that I gained from my time at IAIA, Institute of American Indian Arts. IAIA really inspired me to take my art creativity further. And that's where I learned a lot of beading technique from, along with quill wrapping, porcupine quill wrapping. The first image on the left top corner is an image of a kasbah parka. And it was one of my I think my third ever parkas to produce for my niece. And excuse me, the image on the bottom right left corner is an image of three seal figurines. And these three seal figurines are more of a mixed media type of art. And it mainly consisted of Yupik miscellaneous colors. The image that you guys see on the middle left column is a pair of mukluks that I kind of wanted to go further of. And these were mainly inspired by a pair of mukluks out in out in Anchorage Museum. And it consisted of wolf legs, ringed seal, calfskin, spotted seal, beaver, otter, and bearded seal. I kind of made my mistake on those pairs because the placement of the wolf legs were supposed to be placed on the front and back legs. Although I placed them on the um, side of the mukluks because I got carried away with the design, the beading design. So I also incorporated fancy stitching, and fancy stitching was one of my main designs that I really like to incorporate. The right middle photo that you guys see of myself wearing my mukluks and the jacket was more of Halloween outfit that I wanted to pursue. And the concept of that was an anime show called Naruto. Um, I kind of wanted to indigenize the full form of that and see how my culture can be incorporated, like how we can indigenize, majority of the cartoons. The image that you guys see on the top right corner is an image of the headdress that I produced back in 2021. And it was my first time being more intricate with four directions and of how UP colors can play with the design. And the image that you guys see on the bottom right corner is one of my third fancy parkas to ever produce in my career. The way that I produced that parka was from a collection over at Anchorage Museum, and they had a variety of parkas there. From my own observation, I carefully produced a parka, but more of a contemporary way in changing the design. And that's when I upgraded my niece's parka to much more of fancy parka. Like I mentioned from my previous presentation, I'm the only one in my family that carries this tradition and legacy from my grandmother to this day. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, yeah. So majority of my work is mainly posted on my Instagram, Cookie92, and third gen art 92. Third gen art 92 is more of a recent account that I made. And on Facebook, third generation art is another social media platform that I post my work in. But Cookie92 is more of a page that I mainly post on about this about my Yupik journey, identity journey. But yeah, Koyana. Does anyone have any questions, comments on your specific art form? I think I have a message. Can you see it?
It's disappeared.
How do you open the
Since you're on that screen, and you said you did a lot with the design pattern work, the one that's on the far left, I'm looking severely near. It had like three kind of patterns, it looks like on that. So would they be like traditional ones, or would they be some of the ones you might have elaborated on?
So one of the guests are asking a question on the specific patterns on the far left image. That photo is an archive collection from the Anchorage Museum that I captured, and it's more of a contemporary slash a mix of traditional design. So that design specifically, the artist incorporated glukkat, a fancy stitching design. Glukkat was one of the first ever designs that was incorporated onto the fancy parkas, and it would be either made out of porcupine hair or caribou reindeer beard hair. But yeah. One of the other questions that I see on the chat is how do you go through your process of creating a new project, like idea, sketching, pattern making? Could you talk about that? So the way that I create new projects, specifically ideas such as geometric designs, I would go online and do geometric Google research. And I would also use a graphic paper to design my ideas. Although when it comes to my headdresses, it's more of the contemporary designs, like this one right here. I pretty much do it with freehanding. I don't really like sketching because I don't really have patience with sketching. I feel like to me it's like a waste of time. So then I just let my mind go with the flow and tell stories while I'm sewing. And the way that I also incorporate these designs is also listening to the stories that are being told in my language of the ancestral times, like this legacies, folk art. Yeah, go ahead.
So a lot of different types of furs and from different fur animals. That do you and using those, do you know the harvesters? Or do you have to buy sometimes? Or do you trade sometimes to get the different animal furs? Or is this stuff yourself you harvest?
So speaking about materials and how to obtain them, is that I sometimes buy it off of online from like Wolfer and Wolverine, since it's not accessible in my region.
Okay.
Although things like bird skin or sealskin is what I obtain from my family after they go hunting. But yeah, majority of my community members are very supportive in my art career. And I sometimes get a lot of sealskin or bird skin or muskrat or beaver. Yeah. Are there any other questions?
Yeah.
Oh,
So I'm
I-
noticing tattoos, are those the same as you might apply for some of the clothing that you do?
mm-hmm. So one of the ladies are speaking about my tattoos and where do I got them from? So these tattoos is the first tattoo that is right here is a tattoo that I got from my grandmother's brother's mukluk design. And that design isn't really seen nowadays because my family, my both side of my family kind of discontinued the mukluk making since young bearded seal isn't really accessible these days where in my mother's community. But I kind of wanted to revitalize it, so then I it would help me which family it came from. And the more I tell my family about this design, the more I want them to incorporate it onto their design. And the design that the bottom design is one of the designs that I kind of incorporated. So one of the pairs, this mukluk design right here, the design that you see is is also another design that my aunts incorporate onto their parka. So then incorporating this design along with this mukluk design, I kind of wanted to what do you call it? Explore in both of them to the point where I ended up creating something unique, something special. And then it's one of the parka designs that I want to start incorporating onto my family's fancy parka making or mukluks. So then I would inform people that this is my family design. So if you ever see any of my family wearing this trimming design, they would recognize where that design came from and which design that family belongs to. Yeah. So one of the people are talking, your medicine bag is so amazing. Can you talk about how you put it together? So the medicine bag that I produced back during pandemic was one of the designs that I wanted to go beyond being creative. And the colors that I utilized was natural red pigment, which made it more like spiritually strong. So for this design, I'm one of the only commercialized materials that I used was deer skin. And then majority of them was mainly otter, spotted seal, and the interior, the way that the side edges are stiff was with raw bearded seal hide, which has that spiritual like meaning, more of an in-depth meaning to it. During pandemic, that's when I started to excuse me. That's when I started to ask my mother questions of what our natural medicinal plants were and what they were used for. And I did a lot of research behind natural medicinal plants around Yupik Nation. And from there, I started to gather them and dry them and put them in my medicine bag. But yeah, the designs I kind of sketched, not sketched it, but I kind of played with the designs on cardboard, sailor box cardboard, cracker box cardboard, and wanted to sketch of how the trimming would look like, with how would I incorporate bingayut, the reindeer beard. The designs that I also incorporated was Inga, Eye of the Creator, Eye of the Awareness, and there were some bead designs, geometric designs that I incorporated as well. The second question was, I'm curious if you found inspiration from objects you've seen at the museum. What are your thoughts when you see these objects? I do find a lot of inspiration when it comes to art, conducting research behind these archive collections. It's because the majority of these objects aren't really made these days, because majority of my people mainly focus on commercialized goods because it's easily accessible. But yeah, so every time when I see these objects, I find value to them because their creative aspect, the amount of time that was, the amount of time that was used to create this meaningful object. Majority of these objects, every time when I conduct them, I do a lot of photo shoot around them, capture their significant art, the geometric design, like, because as an artist, I barely see these designs that my ancestors created to this day. But yeah. Are there any other questions? Go ahead.
The picture of you wearing contemporary and traditional headdress. What, like in your opinion, do you as an artist find that you gravitate more towards one or the other, or is it fluid? And how do you navigate, like, choosing the method? Is it based off of like resources that you can access at the time, or significance to the project?
So the question was, how do I balance between traditional and contemporary? So every time, the way that I try to balance traditional and contemporary is through the natural resources. For example, if this object used reindeer beard or reindeer beard on beaver, then how can I make it more contemporary? How can I have a traditional form behind it? That's a really good question, because majority of the time I don't really focus on balancing in between. I mainly focus on how can I better represent this object in a meaningful way, but also making it more contemporary. And then how can I inspire those to pursue these objects? I mean, try to recreate them. But yeah, I don't know if that